Ready, bro?
Ready, bro?
All right, so video went viral.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the comments said, God saved you.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other comments that say, why didn't God save everyone else that took their own life?
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Why you?
Stay. Hold on. Don't pause. I have asthma attacks every day.
Mm-hmm.
Why did God give me asthma? If
Mm-hmm.
I have excruciating back pain from my attempt off the Golden Gate Bridge. Why didn't God save me from that? My birth mother died 2 years before I found my birth family. Why did he make me be able to tell her I love her? We can play that question with every bad thing in our lives, and we can say, why did God save me and not the other 99.9% of the people who left off the Golden Gate Bridge? That doesn't bring them back, and it doesn't make my miracle any less true. I think that people pass away because that's the nature of this life. You live and then you die. What I've learned to do is accept my reality, my family, my friends' reality, the 17 people I've loved that I've lost to suicide in my life. That doesn't make me believe less in God. I have a firm, strong faith. They died because maybe it was their time. However difficult that is to hear, understand, or empathize with, or comprehend, that was their destiny. We can't save everyone. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stop traveling the world trying to impart wisdom on people in immense brain pain, where hundreds of thousands of people have said my story saved their life. Maybe God spared me that day for the purpose of doing this work so that those hundreds of thousands of people could stay right here. But like I said, we can't save everyone. That's not God's fault. And I'm not saying that if you believe in God, you live. If you don't, you don't. That's not how it works. I don't have a definitive answer to your question, but I know that I'm here to give back. That's our purpose in this world. Our purpose is not monetary gain. Our purpose is not to be the most popular person on YouTube. Our purpose is to give back wherever we can, however we can, by as much as we can. How do I know this? Because I used to live in San Francisco with my lovely wife, Margaret. We now live in Atlanta. When I lived in San Francisco, we would go down to West Portal Avenue, and there was this cat named Taz in a wheelchair, homeless individual, great guy, and everybody who walked by him ignored him on that block. They walked by him. They knew he was hungry. They knew he was desperate. They knew he needed help, but they ignored him. They chose to ignore him because it was easy. I chose to walk up to him every single day and say, Taz, what do you need? And he liked Starbucks and it was right there. That's where he would hang out. That's why he would hang out there. Mm-hmm. I would say, Starbucks, what do you want a coffee? Yeah, let me get a coffee. You want a Danish? Oh, I'd love one. You want a banana? Yeah, that too. You want all three of the above? Yes, So I got him that every day. But I didn't just hand it to him and walk away. I handed it to him and I said, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And he would tell me his whole life story. He used to be with a huge record label and he was an incredible executive, but now he's in a wheelchair on the streets because he was shot and he had no choice in the matter. And that's what we need to recognize, is that anybody can end up in that wheelchair, homeless on the street. Anybody. I don't care how wealthy you are. He was wealthy. And look where he is now. He's probably passed away by this point now. But he loved life, even given the situation that had been bestowed upon him by that gunshot wound that changed his life forever. He loved life, and he loved the people that did engage with him. And specifically with me, I did more than give him food. I asked him how his day was. I asked him what he needed. I asked him what he wanted to talk about. And he would tell me his whole life story, and sometimes on repeat. But it was a beautiful thing because it made me a better person. And so I know I've answered more than your question, but I think people's perspective needs a shift. Just because you're in a world of pain today doesn't mean you don't get to have that beautiful tomorrow, but you got to be here to get there in the first place. And people think to themselves that when they have a hardship, they're so desperate they have to take their lives. That's not the answer. Suicide doesn't take the pain away. It makes it impossible for things to change.
Do you think when you went to the bridge that day, I know you wrote a note. How many people you said don't write a note?
22% of civilians who die by suicide, not including the military population, 22% of civilians who die by suicide write a note. So roughly 78% of people who die by suicide don't write notes.
Why is that?
When you're suicidal, when you're in the darkest place in your entire life, and you're in the greatest pain you've ever experienced, lethal emotional pain is what leads to suicide for anybody. Whether it's the Fortune 500 guy who loses all his money and jumps off his building, or it's the guy who's serving a 30-year prison sentence, he's like, this, I'm out. Or it's the person with a diagnosed mental illness that goes and takes their life, because it's not always mental illness that people die by suicide. When you're in that dark of a place, you see nothing but a tunnel vision leading straight to death. You're in the greatest pain you've ever experienced. And let me ask you this, Mark. What is the one thing you want to happen when you find yourself in excruciating physical pain? What do you want that pain to do?
Go away.
You want it to go away, stop, or end. That's physical pain. You want it to go away, stop, or end. But brain pain is arguably 300,000 times worse than any physical pain I've ever experienced in my life. And I experience excruciating physical pain all day, every day. But most people don't notice it because I'm still smiling, because I get to be here. I get this life, which I almost lost in the year 2000, jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. But here I am standing before you. What a gift. And so people who are in that tunnel vision see nothing but ending the pain. And that's normal. Let's normalize the thought of suicide. Let's destroy and take away the action of suicide. Let's help people recognize their true potential to find ways to live better lives so that this life is worth living.
When you went to the bridge that day, was that a decision you made that day, or did you already know weeks before, months before?
The night before my attempt was the time I made when I had the compulsion to take my life. I never call it a decision. You decide to have a slice of pizza. You decide pepperoni or cheese. You don't decide to take your life. You're compelled to take your life by a force outside of you or inside of you that is calling you to suicide. It says you're worthless. You have no value. You have to die. You have to take your life. It's inevitable. I teach people all around the world how to reverse that inner critical voice, that when you look in the mirror and you say you're ugly and you're fat, you say you're beautiful and you look great. When you say you're stupid and you're an idiot, you say you're a genius and you're the best. When you say I hate you and you're worthless, you say I love you and you have value. When you reverse the negative inner critical voice to a more accurate, hopeful one, you can change the trajectory of your life. But if you don't start self-talking to if you don't start talking to yourself properly, it can end you, because it becomes an inescapable word in your mind. It becomes a loop in your brain that says you have to die, and then you can't break free from it. You have to look in the mirror and say kind things to yourself, because what you recite, what you repeat, you will believe. What is every major faith built upon? Recite a prayer, repeat a prayer, believe said prayer. Take faith out of the equation. Recite positive, hopeful, powerful, meaningful, kind messages to yourself. Repeat them. Eventually, you'll believe them.
How did what you did impact your family members, your father?
I broke them.
You feel guilt or
immense guilt. When I leapt off the Golden Gate Bridge, when my father arrived at the hospital, this is a man who hadn't cried in 19 years in my life growing up, tough son of a bitch. And he comes in and waterfalls were flowing from his eyes. And he said, Kevin, I'm sorry. Guilt. I said, no, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm in a bracing structure. I can't move. They're about to do a 10.5-hour back surgery to replace my shattered vertebrae with titanium. My mom came in and she goes, well, I guess God wanted you to win that Oscar. But she's the most optimistic woman on the face of the planet, and her optimism rubs off on me. And she just wanted me to feel hope in that moment. My brother came in. He doesn't remember this, but he said, how could you do this to us? We love you. I hate you. And he walked out. He has no recollection of it. I have witnesses. My sister came in, kissed me on the forehead and said, "I love you." But when I asked my father in the making of the film Suicide, the Ripple Effect, does he still fear my death by suicide? He said, "Turn off the camera." He said, "Kevin, every time the phone rings." He didn't say when I call him. When the phone goes off in his pocket for the last 23 years, his first and every thought is Kevin alive. I did that. And I have to take responsibility for my actions. So today, when my father asks me if I'm suicidal, I tell him the truth. And I always ask for help. I just talked to my mom this morning and asked her the same question. It just popped into my head because we're having this conversation about my depression and that what I'm going through right now in this moment. And I said, "Mom, do you still think about me dying by suicide?" She said, "All the time." I said, "But you know I'm not going to do that. I have the tools." She said, "It doesn't matter. The action you took on September 25th, 2000 imprinted this in my brain, and I can't get rid of it." So I have to constantly prove myself to my family and friends that I'm safe. That's a burden, but it's one I'm willing to take on because I need my family, my friends, and my loved ones to know that I got this, and I'm never going to die in my hands. It's never going to happen. I'm going to live out to the ripe old age of 112, holding my wife's hand in a hospital setting, drifting off into the abyss, like in the film The Notebook I never saw twice or cried during. That's the plan.
Well, I love you, bro. I
Love you,
appreciate
bro.
you sharing your story.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.